What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the show, gang. Good to see Cujo in the chat, Anthony Taylor in the chat. Sorry for keeping you guys waiting a couple minutes. Just getting myself a cup of water, putting the cat away, preparing for the show. We've got a small slate to talk through today. Interesting afternoon slate going on right now. A lot of action. Yankees finally getting off the schneid a little bit. They're in their second rain delay of the day right now. Oh, it looks like James Wood just hit his, I believe, second home run of the day. Is that accurate? Yep. Interesting day. Tigers with 9 runs. Brewers with 8 on the board. They were projecting out pretty well. D-backs with 4 already. What's Ryan Nelson doing? 12 on FanDuel so far. 2 strikeouts, a walk. All right. Ryan Nelson was my cheap pitcher spot on that early slate. Talented guy. Underappreciated. Not a great spot. But anyway, we've got an interesting one today. Oh, did I leave Corbin Carroll in the lineup? I thought I got all the Corbin Carroll out of there. Hang on. I'm going to be annoyed if there's an extra Corbin Carroll in there. How you guys doing out there? Anybody play the early slate? How did that not get replaced? That's annoying. Huh. One of my several Carroll shares apparently didn't get swapped out. Weird. Anyway. Oh, that actually reminds me. In swapping today, when Corbin Carroll didn't play in that late game on FanDuel, I realized FanDuel recently on their CSV spreadsheet added a entry fee column. And if you're using RG's optimizer anyway, they have not adapted to that. So you actually can't upload that CSV without deleting that column. So you need to delete that column, but then to re-upload to FanDuel, you actually need to add that column back in. So it's a real pain in the ass. Figure that out with just a few minutes left. Yeah, Skubal came out after 5 2/3. I think he had a couple runners on in the 6th. Not a great start out of Skubal. Few runs, too many base runners. Not his peak, but I think we can forgive him one clunky one every now and again. Let's see. Yeah, 6 strikeouts. Just 2 runs. 1.59 whip for the game. It's a few runners on base. What are you going to do? Looks like the Yanks and the Angels are starting back up. It's in the 8th, 5-3 Yankees. See where it goes. Yanks left a couple runners on. Or maybe it's going back to that situation, actually. Last I was paying attention, the Yanks had a few runners on with Stanton coming up, I think. That might have been last inning, though. Anyway, handful of people here. It's a small slate. I'm not sure if we're going to get a monster crowd for this one. Let me save this. Projections are up to date on the site for the lineups that we have confirmed already for this slate. Just a 5-gamer to talk through. But a fairly interesting pitching slate. Got a lot of quality here. With Strider, even facing the Mets. The FanDuel price on Strider looks a little bit silly. It's a great Mets lineup, but it's Spencer Strider. We just saw him in peak form against the Rockies. Yoshi Yamamoto against the Pods. Chris Sanchez against the Marlins for a fair price on both sites. A very affordable Clay Holmes to use like crazy as an SP2 option on DraftKings. You've also got Drew Rasmussen right there against the gettable Orioles lineup for a fair price. Kind of dies on the vine a little bit after that, but Charlie Morton's been usable in spots this season. Edward Cabrera, every now and again, I'm playing heavily more against Edward Cabrera, and he's at the bottom of the board. But it's an interesting pitching slate. It's just these yellow games down here. Up there is the earlier games. Ignore the highlighting over here. You don't have to pay attention to that. That's just, it was where I had those games initially, and then when I updated the Vegas lines, I just took all of this and repasted it over here. So it's in a different order now. Don't worry about it. All the runs are in the correct place. Phillies and the Marlins. 7.5 run total there. The Phils coming in at just 4.02, but they're showing a little bit of offensive upside in my model. Going up against Edward Cabrera, who is decent, not great, I'll say. He's fine. definitely usable to take some shots against the Phillies. But I've got Kyle Schwarber as the home run pick of the day coming out of that game. Working on 3 straight, looking for 4. Hoping for the layup with Schwarbs. He's not crazy popular. That's the thing. I think there's 1 or 2 higher rated guys on today's board. And then there's a couple spots that are like, ooh, that's a good home run opportunity, or that's a good, like the Houston Athletics game again. But Schwarbs was sitting there at the lowest ownership out of all the big upside home run hitters, and I just couldn't resist. On the Miami side, going up against Chris Sanchez, don't really love that lineup there. Sanchez is really talented, 3.05 ERA on the season, a 3.14 xFIP, plenty of strikeouts. Goes deep into games, 7 innings in each of his last 2, 6 in the one before that. I like the upside for Sanchez, especially at price. He's not crazy expensive against the Marlins. Mets and the Braves is going to be a really interesting swing point for the slate. Clay Holmes is good. He's typically good at suppressing home runs, but in the last handful of starts, he's actually given up plenty of home runs. 1 each in the last 2 starts, 2 in the start before those 2, none in a game before that, but then 2 in 2 consecutive starts, 2 each, and then 1 in the one before that. He's also only given up a maximum of 4 runs over that stretch, so he's mostly been fine. He's lost a little bit of strikeout upside, though, as the year has gone on. He's working around a 21% strikeout rate. We'll get to it in a little bit. More than capable of shutting that Braves lineup down, finding some strikeouts, but they're drawing a 4.84 implied total against. They've got all that upside in that lineup. So real interesting there. And then Strider, the Mets at a 4.26 implied total against is kind of surprising. He's worked 6 innings in each of his last 2. As mentioned against the Rockies, you can't judge it fully because it's the worst team in baseball with the highest strikeout rate, but 13 strikeouts, 3 hits over 6 innings was tremendous his last time out. Let's cut that in half. We'll say it's 6.5 strikeouts against this very good Mets lineup. As long as I can get 6 innings, get the quality start out of them, seems very, very cheap on FanDuel. Expensive on DraftKings, but probably worth it. It is Spencer Strider. There were maybe some questions going into that game. I think he answered a lot of them, even with it being the Rockies. I think that kind of stands on its own. Charlie Morton, as mentioned, usable in spots. He's going for the O's, going up against the Rays. Last time out, Charlie against the Angels, a somewhat comparable team. 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 5 hits, no runs. Start before that, 2 1/3. Gave up 4 earned on 6 hits, struck out 5, walked 4. Problematic start. Outing before that one, 6 2/3 of shutout ball, 1 run allowed, but it was unearned. 7 strikeouts and a walk. 2 earned runs over 6 before that against St. Louis. So again, usable pitcher. There are strikeouts in that Rays lineup. Drew Rasmussen going the other way is also definitely usable. 8 strikeout, 1 hit game over 5 innings against Texas, 3 starts back, following up a 5 strikeout, 1 hit game over 6 innings against the Twins. 2 runs allowed over 6 to Miami 2 starts ago. 4 earned runs against the Mets in Queens. Wasn't a total meltdown. Struck out 3, walked 1, gave up 2 home runs, which is kind of impactful, obviously, but a little bit wonky as far as how well he pitched. 7.20 ERA for the game, but a 4.79 xFIP, obviously a little bit more manageable. Usable starter, 4.07 on the Orioles side. 4.52 on the Rays side. Make no mistake, both those offenses are going to be in play on this 5-game slate. The Astros with Colton Gordon on the bump. Definitely a pitcher we'll be looking at drawing some bats against, but he's been at least moderately effective over some starts this season so far. Got up to 6 innings in his most recent one. Gave up 2 earned runs on 2 solo shots, 5 strikeouts and a walk against the Twins, but was pretty effective. 5 innings in most of his other starts. Handful of strikeouts in each game. Couple few runs in each game. Joker's back here, by the way. I'm scratching his ear and he's tapping his foot. That's what that noise was. Jacob Lopez is on the mound for the Athletics, pushing a monster total toward the Astros. I think we're leaning mostly bats on both sides of that one. Lopez did have a 9 strikeout game, though, his last time out. That was against Kansas City. That's a good performance against that team. Oh, nice. Judge scored. 6-3 Yanks. So I guess it was still that situation I was talking about. Wellesley up now. Fouled it off. I do think these pitchers are at least in the blender on a short slate to work with, but everything about that ballpark, everything about that run total, everything about the two teams on the other sides is suggesting offense. Ryan Bergert on the mound for the Pods going up against Yoshi Yamamoto, the ace of the day. He's got the Padres checked down to a 3.52 implied total. There is, that issue of the Pods being generally low strikeout. Yamamoto, 2 of his last 3 haven't been great, but overall for the season, he's been tremendous. So I think we just kind of ride with the talent. And the Dodgers drawing the slate high 5.61 implied total against Bergert, showing a lot of power upside. Definitely interested in some Dodgers bats. So again, Strider, especially here, this is a wild standout price for Spencer Strider. They did not move the needle off that 13 strikeout performance. And he just looked like vintage Strider in that game. Again, it was against the Rockies, so take it for what it's worth. But it showed me a lot as far as just having faith in the comeback. And even if it's a couple of runs and fewer strikeouts at 8,600, it's a bargain given what the ceiling is. I think he's going to be crazy popular at that price. 10-6 on DraftKings. He's the most expensive DraftKings pitcher, to put it in perspective. And that's not necessarily incorrect. Yamamoto would be the other guy for that conversation, and he's at 10-3, a couple $100 cheaper. He's going up against a similarly talented, lower strikeout Padres team. There's as much negative working against a very talented Yamamoto as there is against Strider if we're just putting them in, neutral situations as far as their injuries, their recent injuries, their potential innings, and so forth. Strider's got the bigger ceiling between the two. So, monster opportunity on FanDuel, should be very popular at the price, but worthwhile chalk too, if that's the case. I'm just assuming that. Let me pull it up. We can take a quick second to look. Handful of people here as I pull this up, checking in some ownership from other places. Hit the old like button, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't gotten an opportunity, subscribe to the channel. It really honestly does help. We're trying to get it to 1,000. It's been slow going because the same, 50 some odd people or a couple hundred people in views count throughout the day watch the show. And those of you who are going to click the subscribe button probably already have. And the rest of you are, I get it. You're not going to click the subscribe button, but if you can, if you're feeling generous today, if you've had a good day, if we happen to have won you some money on a home run pick or some DFS projections lately, just subscribe to the channel and then mute the notifications. Don't ever worry about it again. It doesn't cost you anything. Anyway, Strider's going to be really popular, as I suspected, on FanDuel. He is the 6th most highest owned player overall and the highest owned pitcher per these ownership projections, which makes a ton of sense at that price. It's ludicrously cheap. On DraftKings, it's going to be interesting, though. At that high price, curious. Nope. Highest overall owned player on the entire DraftKings slate per these projections. So clearly the highest owned pitcher. That's at a very high price. So that's what kind of surprised me. I thought maybe we would sneak by with more ownership on those guys. Sanchez against the Marlins. I don't think we sleep on that at all. He's a very good pitcher. Lefty going up against that team should be perfectly fine. 9,700, 9,000. The ballpark on his side down there. It's a lot to like about that spot. Let people sleep on that and ride with expensive Strider. Take the opportunities on some Chris Sanchez. Clay Holmes for SP2 at 7,500 on DraftKings is dynamite, even against a good Braves offense with all that power. Like I said, typically throughout his career history in relief work and earlier this season in starts, Holmes has been excellent at limiting home runs. He's given up a bunch lately, and the strikeouts have dipped. But I do like the talent, and I think that's just baked into the price. Projects out just fine, and there are strikeouts available in that Braves lineup. Rasmussen, 83.78, definitely a good option against the Braves, or against the Orioles, rather, Baltimore. I started to say Baltimore, and I pivoted to Braves in my brain for some reason, and it just came out a mess. Colton Gordon and Jacob Lopez, like I said, at cheap prices back and forth, there are things in their seasons this year that you can point to say they're at least playable, but everything about the game environment, everything about Vegas and the opposing lineup says go to the bats. Charlie Morton, usable, as I just went through a minute ago. Very cheap on both sites against a Rays lineup that definitely has some Ks. Cabrera's a risk for sure against a good Phillies lineup, but he's also very cheap. And then Bergert, I think, is probably the only guy that's not really in the conversation going up against those Dodgers. Just doesn't feel right, but he's very, very cheap. Any new lineups come in? We get the Marlins yet? We did not. We do have just passing showers in Tampa Bay. Everything else is green. No weather to worry about on this slate after the messy one yesterday. So, again, the Phils checking in with just a 4.02 implied total against Cabrera. He's been, like I said, good, not great. 4.10 ERA, 3.77 xFIP is fine. 25% strikeout rate is pretty good, but a 9.9% walk, 10.7% swinging, and a near 30% CSW is very good. But he's given up a 9.4% barrel. That's bad. 10 is usually our real concern threshold, but 9.4, close enough. We're over the mark here. We're over the mark there. Probably a little lucky to beat 3% home runs. The 10-degree average launch is kind of manageable, though, but easy enough to get him for power. Gave up a home run in each of his first 4 starts. Joker, would you go lie down, please? What are you doing? Chill, buddy. It's basically one game early and then went on a 3-game stretch where he was pretty decent. Gave up 1 earned run in 3 games. All under 6 innings. One of them he gave up 3 runs, or the one where he gave up the earned run. 3 runs in that game. Only went 4 innings in that game. Struck out 5, walked 2. That was against the Rays at Tampa. Last time out, 3 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. Gave up a home run. That was at Washington. Prior to that was working a little deeper, 5 2/3, 5 2/3, 5 innings. His best game of the season, 10 strikeouts against the Angels. Does have that kind of upside for K's. He can find swinging strikes. He can find, he can find strikes in general. But this Phillies team is not terrible for strikeouts. And one of the guys who does strike out a lot is their most lethal bat. So I'm not really hunting with Edward Cabrera here, but again, short slate, 7,000. You can definitely mix him in. Even on FanDuel at 78, a couple of darts across a full portfolio of lineups, fine. If you're playing 20, maybe 1 or 2 is all right. Sanchez is the appeal, though. 9,097, just a little too cheap. 3.05 ERA with a 3.14 xFIP, inducing a 13.1% swinging strike rate, pulling in a 26.3% strikeout rate overall. This averages out to an 18.6% strikeout rate with these guys. You do have some low strikeout rates up at the top with Xavier Edwards. Agustin Ramirez has been demonstrably good at avoiding the strikeouts, but Sanchez does have the ability to go force some strikeouts and find some strikeouts. So you've got between those guys where maybe he finds one against those guys, and then this stretch of hitters where there's legitimate actual strikeout upside for him, I actually like this spot for him to find some Ks. He's very good at keeping the ball on the ground, 4.7 degree average launch, just allowing a 2.09% home run rate. You can see how far above average stuff plus grades his arsenal. So against a team that we're typically trying to target, on a day where Spencer Strider's running wild with shares, Chris Sanchez at a cheap price, 9,000, 9,700, really, really works. Very gettable Marlins lineup on the other side. Love that option. Going to Phillies bats, of course, over the Marlins bats. Trey Turner off the top, 59-39 across sites, 304, 363, 459. Didn't realize this wasn't pulled all the way over. Apologies. Larry saying 32% Strider, 32 is on DK. That's for a different site. That is right around, they have, the place I look on DK is a little bit higher than that, actually. 5 and change points higher. So it's probably somewhere, 30 to 40% on DK. I think it's perfectly within expectations. Well, little surprisingly high. I would have probably guessed 25 to 30. Powers here. All is right in the world's era. Yanks are starting to heat back up, and they're making a new Spaceballs movie. Yeah, I was, I'm at least intrigued. Mel Brooks is still kicking, seems engaged and, involved. So I'm happy about that. It's not just necessarily like Josh Gad looking to cash in on the name. Josh Gad is kind of the wild card. Seems like a really nice guy. Seems to put together a lot of good things. I don't know how funny he actually is. That's the one thing with him at the helm. I'm like, But with Mel really involved, I'm kind of interested. And I was a little bit intrigued. Yeah, Moranis coming back for it too. That's really interesting. I'm really excited about that. It's been a minute. They released the little teaser trailer the other day with just the crawl, the classic Star Wars crawl parody, and it was just going through all the franchise releases since the last Spaceballs, which I thought was clever. It was a funny way to drop it, and I was at least like, all right, they're off to a good start. And a clunky transition. Speaking of good starts, again, Christopher Sanchez, really intriguing. But his lineup, backing him up. I think putting him on top of some Phillies bats is an interesting approach to the slate, especially on a short slate, when you can add a little bit of upside to that win equity. Kind of makes sense. Yeah, rip John Candy. That's unfortunate. They'll probably work it. Maybe that's what Josh Gad is in it, like, Barf's son, something like that. If Josh Gad's going to actually be in it at all, I'm not sure. So Kyle Schwarber again, 13 in the home run model, home run pick of the day, 57-43 across sites, 22 homers on the season to go with all that extra, all that on base skill that Trey Turner provides when he's not going deep. He's stealing bases. He's getting to first base. He's getting knocked in by Schwarber. So for all the money that they cost, they're a fantastic duo up top. I don't mind that at all. And don't mind bolting on some Alec Bohm, 3,800, 3,100, 7 homers for him on the season. He hits the ball very hard. He hits the ball very regularly, 15.2% strikeouts, 4.7% walks. It's exactly what we're looking for, is just consistent bat on ball and upside in the quality of the bat on ball for a cheap price at either corner. That's a great way to fill those corner spots. 38, 31, no problem with Alec Bohm in either site. Nicky Castellanos with a lot of weird shit going on in the world. Why not? 3,800, 2,900. Always good for a home run. 7 on the board this season. 281, 322, 428. A 108 WRC plus so far this season. He's been good. This has been a strong performance. Over 300 plate appearances for Castellanos. He's got a 9.7% barrel. 40% hard hits, essentially, up from last year. Hitting for good average. He's been a better player this year than he was last year overall. Kepler, a lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits so far. In 251 plate appearances, has turned into just 9 home runs, a 186 ISO. He's exactly at league average for run creation. The 335 xWOB under the cover stands out a little bit. 218, 311, 405. We would expect that to improve based on that xWOB, just based on that contact. He's very affordable, hitting in the heart of the lineup for a cheap price. Easy to reach in the outfield with Max Kepler. There is home run upside. There's very real power there. Larry says the O's lineup dropped. I'll grab it. Otto Kemp, high-end prospect for the Phils, 39, pretty decent plate appearances so far. Hasn't gotten deep, but he scored 6 times. He's driven in 4, 278, 333, 306. Just a 271 xWOB and just a .028 ISO. Has yet to barrel a ball, only a 38.5% hard hit rate. So not a great match at the corners as far as just the lack of power goes, but should eventually hit for a little bit more pop. 5.08 in the home run model based on some of his actual talent. Bryson Stott, 41-28, always good for some correlated scoring, a stolen base. He's only getting on at a 302 clip, just an 81 WRC plus this season. Has more upside than that. 41 is a little bit imbalanced on DraftKings, but it's an inexpensive day overall outside of the very top of the pitching board. So I think we're okay to take some overpriced Bryson Stott. 28 on FanDuel, kind of a good example of where you ought to be. Rafael Marchand, 24-22 across sites, mix and match quality catcher. Brandon Marsh, a lot of upside that we've talked about a bunch. Hits the ball very, very hard from the 9 spot, getting on base at a 348 clip, and he's very good at that over time. 106 WRC plus. He's an ideal wraparound backup to Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Bohm, Nick Castellanos. That would be my most interesting 5th man. I think I would just stack it 9 1, 2, 3, 4. If we're doing that, our 5-man price is not going to be bad. 4,400 a piece for the 5. If you want to get slightly cheaper, you can take Kepler over Castellanos. 4,320. It's the same price, 4,400. But that is a really interesting way to build with the Phillies. I'll keep harping on it. I mean, 8.2% barrels, 46.9% hard hits, in line with previous seasons. Tons of walks, just like he's always done. Striking out a little bit less this year, down notably, actually, 7 points. Marsh has quietly been really good down there. Interesting option. Marlins bats against what I expect to be an effective Chris Sanchez. Don't love it. 3.5 run total, one of the lowest on the board. If you're going that direction, I would focus on a couple of those low strikeout options up at the top of the lineup. Hope for some base hits, some correlated scoring upside. Agustin Ramirez does hit the ball with authority. He's hit 10 home runs this season. He's also only slashing 238, 292, 451. 349 xWOBA should, tells us that should push up with his contact, especially with the low strikeout, medium walk rate. A lot of available contact there to work with. Kid is definitely good, and he's cheap, 3,800, 2,900. So if you're going Marlins, he's a priority bat, and he's the guy that you're looking to drive in some runs up at the top. So it's not a bad duo there. I would prefer Edwards where he is at second base on DraftKings, second base on FanDuel for 28 rather than shortstop, I think. Otto Lopez has hit 6 home runs, 8 stolen bases. I feel like every time I say he's somewhat skippable, he goes out and hits a home run. So I won't say that, but I will say that he's only okay. Replacement level quality player, 81 WRC plus over 232 plate appearances. He has driven the ball effectively. Just a 7.9% barrel rate and a 33.9% hard hit overall, though. 352 xWOBA under the covers. 9.1% walk rate against 14.2% strikeouts. So consistent bat on ball, some walks, some correlation. Just not a big fan of that option. Edilberto Hernandez, 3,025 across sites, 41 pretty effective plate appearances so far, a 149 WRC plus, a home run on the board, 342, 390, 500. Eric Wagaman, still hitting the ball fairly hard, 45.1% hard hits anyway, just 6.9% barrels is not great. That's where 249, 292, 372 with just a 123 ISO, 5 home runs. So he's not capitalizing much on the quality of contact. Low strikeout, medium walk, though. He's playable if you're fishing for a full Marlin stack, but I don't think there's any reason to do that. They're probably better off as 3-man, maybe some one-offs. Dane Myers, mix and match another guy. Medium quality contact, 8% barrels, but 45% hard hits. He's had good 143 plate appearances, though. 331, 378, 474. Creating runs 38% better than average. One of the better options on the team. Connor Norby at 37-26 has 4 home runs and 196 chances. Just a 131 ISO against 9.3% barrels. He's missing the hard hit rate. He's kind of the opposite of what everybody else on this team is giving you. Playable, but probably better ways to fill third. 2,600 at second. If I'm not going to one of the several other second base options on this team, then fine. He can be in the mix, but not super appealing. Nick Fortes, Javier Sanoa, not much reason to play those two guys outside of just mixing up some already low-owned Marlin stacks in a bad spot. Chris Sanchez, Phillies bats, and then Cabrera, and then, mix in Marlins bats if you want to. Power says Sanchez is the only pitcher he trusts today. I got a fair amount of trust for Spencer Strider. It's a bad matchup against the Mets. We're getting into it momentarily. But if he's right, he's ridiculous. So we'll see where it goes. Right now we're at a 28.7% strikeout, 4.35 ERA, but a 3.96 xFIP under it. Inducing a 15.3% swinging is a pretty good sign that the stuff is at least working the way he wants it to. Just under a 30% CSW. Typically, he's aggressively above 33.8, 18.9. Last year, it was just 2 starts, so we don't really want to count those. Year before, 31.1, 15.5. So we're a little bit under his usual performance, but these are still ridiculously good marks. Walking a few, too many so far. In previous years, that number was a couple points lower, but he always would put some guys on base via the walk and then just is ridiculously good at punching his way out of trouble. Also doesn't give up a ton of barrels, ton of premium contact, ton of home runs. Difficult to square up when that stuff is working fully effectively, especially with all the swinging strikes. He's given up some barrels so far in the very small sample. 42.1% hard hits, 92 miles an hour of exit velo is definitely noteworthy. That makes it very believable on the 4% home runs in 31 innings, a handful of batters. But I most definitely trust Spencer Strider, especially at that price, as I think I made pretty clear in the run up to this show. 10-6 on DraftKings. He's going to be crazy popular. I do think that's a spot that maybe you undercut the field a little bit while still having a very large portion of Spencer Strider yourself and move things around to some of the other upside pitchers who are also expensive but can check in at lower ownership. I think that's a fine approach. I don't have any issues with that. It might come up that way in some sims once you start running against ownership and everything. But that is not to say in any way that Spencer Strider is not worth that 10-6 and even against some ownership on DraftKings. He very, very much is. And he's going up against a Mets lineup, the confirmed version of which has a 20% strikeout rate this year. That's pretty believable. Last year, the same group of hitters, 21%, with apologies to Ronnie Mauricio, who wasn't there. I think it's believable around 20%. You've got some excellent bats in this lineup, like Frankie Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso. Brendan Nimmo has plenty of pop in the bat. If it's somebody's going to capitalize on a mistake, some barrels allowed, some of that exit velo that Strider's allowed so far, Nimmo's a candidate for that from the left side. So there is a threat here. He's not, safe, but I do trust him. So those are kind of different things. Munganack says, I've been dog sitting for a week now. I haven't talked to a live person. Give me a break if I get squeaky. I was dog sitting for my parents' dog Dylan up until they picked him up yesterday. It's weird. Just after a week, there's like a weird just absence for a day or two, until you get reoriented. I woke up like, oh shit, where's Dylan? Larry says, kind of weird. Gray was supposed to start yesterday. He's not starting until Saturday now. I have him on season-long team. Buying a couple extra days rest for a veteran, and I'm not sure what their schedule is. Depends on who they're playing. Like the Brewers went with Freddie Peralta today instead of just adjusting Mizurowski to today and moving Freddie to the Friday game, which is against the Twins, because today's game's against the Cubs. It matters more than a game against the Twins. So, I get it if they're shifting it for those reasons. Is Judge Guy washed now? Yeah, totally. He's shot. Probably won't get another hit the rest of the season. Clay Holmes is the wild card here, 7,500, 8,900. I like those prices. You let fly in the projections. 21.1% strikeout rate with a 9.8% swinging and effective 28.4% CSW. 2.87 ERA, but a 3.68 xFIP. He's given up more home runs lately, but we are still at just a 2.80% home run rate. And that comes on still a very good 5.8 degree average launch. So he's having a very, very big impact given his career history, given the numbers that he's still putting up this year, despite some hard hits and exit velo and some barrels creeping through. Overall, most of the trajectory is at a manageable launch angle. So he's having a big impact on some Braves home run numbers. The Braves can sequence with the best of them. They're carrying a 4.84 implied total. They're definitely interesting on this slate, and they might have a little bit more believable upside. If you just ran this against this year's Clay Holmes numbers, they'd probably be drawing a little bit more home run. It wouldn't be 10 plus. Even for, like Ronnie Acuna, I'd expect 8 or 9, somewhere in that territory, 7.5, 8. But they would be light. I have no issues with playing some Braves against Clay Holmes. But if he's going to be under-owned, 75, 89, I'm going to that spot. I think he'll be really popular at 75 on DraftKings, though, just as an SP2. Am I correct? Come on. I am not correct. Wow. It might not work out, but that's an opportunity. If these guys are right, they've got him sub 10%. I think that's a little silly. At 7,500, sub 10% ownership, that is the go-to spot as far as SP2. Again, Braves are good. They're drawing nearly a 5-run implied total. There's a lot of obvious, negative there. But Clay Holmes is more than good enough to get through this team. I'm surprised he's that low owned. That might not be correct. But even if he comes in, 10, 12% at that price, I still think it's advantageous. I started to talk about the Mets bats a little bit when I was talking about Strider. Nimmo, 42-31. Again, putting very good bat on ball. He's hit 13 home runs, carrying a 195 ISO. It's been good. 340 xWOBA under the covers. He's just not hitting for average this year, not getting on base as consistently as you would expect. But he is low strikeout. He's cut a few points off strikeout rate this year. He's lost a little bit in walks. That's where some of the on base has gone. But still a very effective bat in the 2 spot from the left side. I don't dislike it at all. And you've got him surrounded by 3 superstars. Lindor at 54-35 has 14 homers, 13 steals, a 128 WRC plus, 191 ISO on 9% barrels, 44% hard hits. That'll probably normalize back up to double-digit barrels and a 200 plus ISO. Here comes some thunder. That was unintentional. It'll normalize to a 200 plus ISO. Here comes some thunder. That was not what I was saying. I'm saying outside, all of a sudden it's all green and thundery. Yankees game's over, though. So yeah, I would expect Lindor to finish above a 200 ISO, plenty of home runs, usual superstar numbers. Soto, 14 homers, 248, 387, 462, a 214 ISO, a 447 xWOBA. If you need any encouragement that everything will eventually normalize over the next 300 and change plate appearances, which will probably be better than the previous ones. Even if he doesn't end up hitting for average, he's still getting on at a ridiculous clip. He's creating runs 41% better than average. He'll total out around 30 home runs. Perfectly fine for the money at 56.36. Alonso, down to 5,237 on FanDuel. He's hit 17 homers, 291, 387, 561. Coming down a little bit in the front end of the slash line, but that's to be expected with this hitter. Still carrying a 433 xWOBA, 166 WRC plus, nearly a 21% barrel rate, 55% hard hits. It's a monster season so far out of Pete. And then everybody else is cheap. Starlin Marte, 35-26. 35-26. Easy to pop into the outfield to cheapen up the Mets a little bit. He's not hitting for a ton of power this year, but he's getting by on some BABIP, some on base, creating runs. Very solid 331 xWOBA is encouraging. Might find a little bit more hard hit, a little bit more barrel as we go on. He hasn't been great in those departments over the last couple seasons, though. He's cut some strikeout down, walking about the same as he normally does. Should start taking advantage more of his speed. 4 stolen bases is kind of uncharacteristically low over 152 plate appearances with that kind of on base, but it's also not nothing. Jeff McNeil, 7 oddball home runs in 155 plate appearances. It's not like he's putting good bat on ball, 5% barrels, 32.5% hard hits. It's a slight increase in barrels for him, but it's not a big upside in barrels. What he does succeed in is batting average on balls in play and getting to first base when those hits are falling in. 361 on base right now. Correlated scoring for 142 WRC plus. He's got a nice 242 ISO based on the early performance for extra base hits. He's been fine. 37-29. I have no issues with him at second base or honestly in the outfield. Taylor at 3,024. Pretty mediocre start to his year. 215 kind of plate appearances, 8 stolen bases, 2 home runs on the board. The 329 xWOBA is encouraging. What we've seen from him in years past for more barrels than this. A third again, more barrels on top or a little bit more than that. Half again, more barrels on top actually. I don't mind the option 4.53. I think it's very realistic the way he's projected. There's a little bit of lingering upside there, but Spencer Strider's on the mound. Francisco Alvarez, 48.8% hard hits. He's only managed 2 home runs of 0.78 ISO in his 130 plate appearances, but I'm a buyer on the contact and I'm a buyer at the price. If I have to roster a catcher at 3,000 and I'm already going to the Mets, I would include him in some options, in some stacks. 27-26 for Ronnie Mauricio with his pedigree. If it weren't for Spencer Strider on the mound, you'd probably be more interested in him at those prices, especially on FanDuel where he's got multi-position. Not totally ideal at third base, but he does have some pop in the bat. He's already hit 2 home runs. He swiped 2 bases, so he's provided a little bit of DFS upside despite the otherwise ugly numbers. On the Braves side, you can definitely draw down against Clay Holmes with some Braves stack, given that Vegas total, given their ability to provide correlated scoring via on base and some just quality hitters. No problem with it at all. But I do think there's, if Clay Holmes is on point, I do think there's, potentially an impact to the massive home run upside that they normally carry. Ronnie Acuna at 64.44 is the obvious way to get started. He's only at 390, 495, 720 with a 443 xWOBA, 8 home runs already, 20.3% barrels, 59.3% hard hits, a 233 WRC plus in that sample. Ridiculous. He's so good at baseball. Glad he's back. 33.25 Alex Verdugo is a mix and match player who's completely miscast being the 2-hitter for this team. Austin Riley, 48.32, much more interesting, 11 home runs. Just a 156 ISO is a total mismatch for the 14.7% barrels, the 50.5% hard hits, the history we've seen from this hitter. Some of the extra base hits, some of the home run pace will come around for Riley. It's not like he's having a bad season anyway. 110 WRC plus, a 341 xWOBA, and he's gotten a little bit cheaper around the edges for the underperformance. Olsen at 55.34, 15 homers, 228 ISO, monster premium contact as always. I would expect that home run total to continue to climb as we go through the season. I think we have a better second half than first half from Matt Olson and from a lot of these hitters. Ozuna at 42.33, 11 home runs, still making very good contact overall, a 384 on base. The numbers have come down somewhat. The lack of power output in a way, 11 home runs is not a terrible total after 300 plate appearances. We've got plenty of guys in the league with not double-digit home runs still. But it's underwhelming for Marcell Ozuna. He's priced way, way down at 4,200 on DraftKings. I still think that's an overreaction. I could more kind of get in line with like 4,800, like where they've got Austin Riley maybe. Similar numbers from both hitters so far. Similar histories of being excellent. So I think you take advantage on both those guys, but especially so on Ozuna. Drake Baldwin, tons of good bat on ball out of him. If you have to play a catcher, that's a strong consideration at 3,900. 7 home runs and 151 chances, a terrific slash line, creating runs 21% better than average, 52.6% hard hits, not striking out either, not really walking, so a lot of high-quality bat on ball. Underperforming Ozzy Albies always in the mix, but underperforming. Same thing with Michael Harris. Nick Allen, as always, here for defense. Spencer Strider on FanDuel. Clay Holmes on DraftKings. Braves bats. Spencer Strider on DraftKings. Clay Holmes on DraftKings, or on FanDuel. Mets bats. It's a weird one. Just given the way these pitchers are priced. I think I got it right, though. I think that's how it goes. O's and the Rays, think we got these lineups in. We do. So again, weather in the area for this one, but not anything of concern. Just the usual passing Florida showers. And then should be fine. Should be upside for bats. Both teams checking in with 4+ implied totals. The Rays at a 4.5. The Orioles at a 4.08. Drew Rasmussen, like I said, 8,300, 7,800. Another strong option at a very, very fair price. The Orioles confirmed lineups coming in with a 24% strikeout rate. Some of their righties have issues against same-handed pitching. They have a heavily left-handed lineup, which could bode well for their power upside, but Rasmussen hasn't been bad for home runs. 8.1 degree average launch, a 5.9% barrel allowed, just 2.83% home runs. Some hard hits, some exit velo, but it's one of the low trajectory ground ball type pitchers. 2.55 ERA, a 3.41 xFIP, 9/10 of a run higher, but still pitching very, very well. A sub-1 whip, 5.3% walks against 21.9% strikeouts is very strong. 14 pretty good starts. Last year, it was just 28 2/3, had a 30% strikeout rate against a 5.2% walk in the tiny sample, was tremendous in that spot. Just 44 2/3 2 years ago, 26% strikeouts, nearly 27 against the 6% walk. Again, if you're adding some of this up, he's been very good over time. Back in 2022, he made 28 starts, pitched 146 innings, 21.4% strikeouts, 5.3% walks. Even if he's just this guy, that's still a really good option at these prices to throw at this group of Orioles. Like the upside quite a bit for Drew Rasmussen. I think he's right in the mix with like Clay Holmes at those prices, and with Strider at price on the FanDuel slate. Different kind of quality, different kind of pitcher, but probably a better matchup for him against the O's. And then there's Charlie, 6.05 ERA, but a 4.14 xFIP, a 1.6 WHIP, an 11.2% walk rate, but a 10.9% swinging strike rate, a 23.4% strikeout rate. 10.8 degree average launch is manageable, but he's over the mark in hard hits and exit velo. He's given up 3.5% home runs on 8.2% barrels. There's some good, there's some bad. 10 starts, 61 innings, a couple bulk relief appearances. Like I said at the top of the show, 5 innings in a full start his last time out, 5 hits, no runs against the Angels, 10 strikeouts and a walk. You definitely wanted Charlie at 6,500 that day. Similar upside for strikeouts against this Rays lineup, 22.3%. Maybe there's a percentage point or two extra in the Angels day-to-day. But Charlie's got that same kind of potential any given slate. He's also got the same downside as the guy who gave up 4 runs in 2 1/3 the game before that against the Athletics. Struck out 5 and walked 4. Had a really rough start to the season. His first 4 games, he gave up 18 runs. Excuse me. I left out 2 more ugly games. That's 28 runs in his first 6 games. And then has been fairly clean since then. The 4 runs against the A's 2 starts ago is the most problematic outing since then. Several of those, though, were bulk relief appearances of 2, 3, 4 1/3 type appearances. So bear that in mind as you kind of like weigh the recent uptick with the downside that we know is very much in there. But 65.71, he's got to be in play at those prices. I think he projects out like it. Clearly lower on the board than a lot of guys, but very, very cheap. Got to manage the walks today. That'll be important for him. This is a good target to do that against. Not a lot of these guys draw great walk rates. So it's a manageable spot for Charlie. Orioles bats, though, in play against Rasmussen. Rays bats probably more in play against Charlie. I would expect they'll be kind of popular. Brandon Lau, I think, was one of the more popular players on both sites. Monster home run upside for him, 8.53 in the model in a home game, taking shots at that porch in right field that's the same as Yankee Stadium, but in Florida weather. Love the upside, 12% barrels. He's hit 15 already this year. He's got a 209 ISO. Brandon Lau is very, very real in the 2 spot. 44.31 is not a bad price to find him at. Josh Lowe for 44 for 3,000 on FanDuel. 4 home runs, 5 steals, just getting on at a 317 clip, but a 335 xWOB under the covers, hitting the ball very hard. Lost some barrels year over year, but I would expect those come back in the long term. So that's probably where a little bit of our home run pace, our extra base hit pace has gone. But he's very effective in that spot, and he's not all that expensive. Good correlated scoring option with the top of the lineup guys here. Should get on base a little bit more as time goes on. Yandy Diaz still hitting the ball really hard, not striking out, not really drawing that many walks, so a lot of balls in play for 41.29. You just have the pain in the ass positional conflict with Jonathan Aranda on the DraftKings slate. You got to go first base util on FanDuel. They're both cheap, though. 10 home runs on the board for Diaz, 8 for Aranda with a better slash line. He's still getting on at a 417 clip, creating runs 65% better than average. He's just been tremendous, and he's not priced up, 4,200, 53.6% barrel. Who else is doing this over 266 plate appearances that has not been priced up? It's kind of weird. Take advantage. Junior Caminero, 43.32, another guy, still not expensive. 11.2% barrels, 49.1% hard hits, 17 home runs now, 245 ISO, a 130 WRC plus, a 346 xWOBA. Just 17% strikeouts and 5.8% walks. So he's just getting opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to crush baseballs. He is just really good. Way too cheap. They're definitely going to be popular at these prices up at the top end. I mean, everybody, this is going to average out to what, like 42, 42.80, 43? So everybody looks like what they are price-wise, but everybody's easily a couple $100 cheap over here. On FanDuel, it's the same deal. It's going to average to like 3,000. Yeah, 3,025. It does kind of cut at Jake Mangum, though. As I've said a bunch of times, not really a big fan. Quad A type player. He's been fine. He's definitely getting on base, creating runs. What's his recent run look like, though? I haven't really noticed him pop up. Maybe he has, and I just haven't been paying attention. Maybe I'm just still bitter about the Chandler Simpson thing. Look, I get it. Simpson doesn't play good defense. I just feel like, man, a guy with that speed, you really ought to be able to teach him how to play somewhere in the outfield. Can't teach instinct, though. For the month of June, Mangum, a respectable enough 283, 328, 317, but just a 90 WRC plus, a 292 WOBA, not ex-WOBA, WOBA under the covers. No home runs, 2 stolen bases, 13 ribbies, if you're just looking for cheapo counting stats that don't really mean anything. 17 hits, but only 2 of them for extra bases. 20% strikeouts, just 4.6% walks. So we're already normalizing some of what is still a good on base. 352 overall, but for the last 18 days, 317. If you want to put some more sample on that, going back to his return, that's 2 extra days. It's 319. Prior to hitting the IL, it's an okay couple of games in there. Had a few games in like mid-April where it wasn't great, but came through fine. 333 if you stretch it all the way back to April 9th. But just got off to a really hot start. People are kind of fans of rostering him. He's cheap. He's usable. But I continue to think that we go down that way. Cameron Misner, 34-26, mix and match quality at best. Danny Jansen gives you a little pop from the catcher position for a very fair price. 7.2% barrels is nothing special. Neither is 36.9% hard hits. He's got 6 home runs and 180 chances. We've seen him hit for power in the past. Again, if you're dipping to the bottom of the Rays lineup for bats, it's getting a little bit thin. But he's a believable option down there at a very affordable price. What he's not is a great wraparound opportunity. He doesn't get on base like crazy. It's more of a table clearer than a table setter. But he's fine to use in that capacity. That's nothing wrong with it. I think it's Drew Rasmussen, Rays bats, Charlie Morton, Orioles bats. Oh, I didn't actually go through the Orioles. My bad. I forgot. I started with the Rays. Jackson Holiday for 42-29. As we've talked about a bunch, he's kind of just fulfilling his potential this year. A lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits, 8 homers, 7 steals. Take advantage. Still cheap, 29-42. One of the better ways, honestly, to fill second base outside of Brandon Lau, who's going to be way more popular. Not a bad option at all. Adley for 4,028. 8 home runs, if nothing else. 353 xWOB is very encouraging. Still creating runs in a positive sense at 103 WRC+. Hasn't been a great year for Adley, but moderately effective season. Down to just a 3.12 against Rasmussen, who, again, has been decent at checking power. Gunnar, mid-price, 46.32. One of the more expensive bats on this team. That's why he's in red there, but that's not an overly expensive price, especially when you consider the talent involved. 8 home runs, 9 steals, and 284 chances this year, getting on at a 342 clip. Creating runs 22% better than average. Very usable here. Jordan Westberg, 4,034. Differently priced across sites. 132 plate appearances with 7 home runs at 221 ISO, making this kind of premium contact, and they're only going to price him there. Maybe DraftKings just thinks third baseman should be cheap. I don't know why that is. It seems like everybody at third base is always the guy who comes in underpriced. Very weird. But yeah, that's too cheap, as is that. Ryan O'Hearn for 45-31. Solid slash line, 10 home runs. Been a buzzy player lately for just the continued consistent performance and the fact that they acquired him, for a relatively cheap price after he was basically discarded. 149 WRC plus this season. A 184 ISO, if you want something to nitpick, is not tremendous, but for this quality of bat, it is. That's a good ISO for him. It could be a little bit higher, but it's reflective of like the more line drive oriented hitter that he actually is, I think. But 10 home runs, it's a solid enough pace for the price. Ramon Laureano at 37.28 can always hit you a home run, gets on base effectively enough to be a decent correlated scorer. 254 ISO this year, 9 home runs and 149 chances. One of the better stretches we've seen of him in the last 2 or 3 years. Colton Cowser at 38.27. Pretty poor slash line over 63 chances, but he's already hit 5 home runs, carrying a 276 ISO. This is coming off a breakout power year last year. 17.1% barrels, 54.3% hard hits. Both numbers up from last year in the very small sample so far. Kind of ignore the slash line. Just ride with the power. Ride what we know is there. Big lefty bat. Ramon Urias is affordable for a guy who hits with a decent amount of pop. Reasonable slash line so far this year as well. 102 WRC plus. And then Sed Mullins down the bottom of the lineup. Continuing to do Sed Mullins things. 12 homers, 8 steals, 118 WRC plus. Flawed player for sure, but definitely can produce counting stats, can score runs, can be a decent wraparound option from down there too. If you're just going from there back up to here, not bad, not a bad way to do it. So as I was saying, I think it's Rasmussen, Rays bats, Morton, Orioles bats. Might be Orioles bats over Morton. That's very close. They're both medium type options. Dude, what is going on with you today? Why are you so whiny? What's up? I got 2 games to go. Chill. 2 games to go. Big offensive spot of the day. BBL Slayer saying, why does everyone love Strider today? Because he's, if not the very best pitcher in baseball for strikeouts and DFS points, he's top 3 and, seemingly back to form. As somebody mentioned, I think it was Larry mentioned somewhere in there, the velo was back up last start. Struck out 13. It was against the Rockies, but like I said earlier, cut that in half if you want to. There's a guy who used to have, when he was, a year plus ago, when he was before the injury, 36% strikeouts. He's ridiculous. Not a great spot. Very, very popular. The FanDuel price is the other reason. That's just incorrect. Even if he's terrible today, that's just not correct. He's not terrible now. There's a couple starts just coming back. Let him give him a minute to find his footing. I promise Spencer Strider is not bad now. Why would we say he's bad? Because he gave up 3 runs over 6 innings to the Giants. 5 runs to the Diamondbacks could happen to anybody. Just 1 allowed over 4 2/3 to the Phillies. He's faced some good lineups. He's given up some runs as he's finding his form. Had a 7 strikeout game in 4 2/3 against the Phils. Was basically on form that game. Lost a few walks along the way, but he always walked a few hitters. Again, just to go back in time real quick. The terrible version of Spencer Strider is still carrying a 15.3% swinging strike rate, nearly a 30% strikeout rate. So even if you buy some of the small sample premium contact, the home runs, the 4+ ERA, which the xFIP is under 4, the strikeouts are very much there. The swinging strikes are very much there. The DFS scoring is very much there. 537 implied total for the Astros, drawing some power upside against Jacob Lopez. 63.75. Lopez does check in with a 29% strikeout rate over 5 starts, 30 innings, 4.80 ERA, but a 4.37 xFIP, inducing an 11.7% swinging strike rate overall, but just a 27.9% CSW doesn't exactly align with that. It's not completely atrocious on its own, but it explains the high walk rate at 9.4%. We're not finding the zone quite enough, but he's fine. Barrels, 7.4% is manageable. Hard hits and exit velo are actually very low, but it's an extreme fly ball trajectory at 26.8. It's resulted in some home runs. This ballpark will definitely feed that beast a little bit. 3 home runs allowed in a home game back against Minnesota 3 starts ago. I'm just wanted to see how many of the home runs have come in this park, and one in a home game against the Phillies. So 4 of the 6 home runs he's allowed so far this season have come in this park, which makes sense. But he's also got 2 9-strikeout games and 8-strikeout game on the board so far. Kid does have some strikeout ability, if nothing else. Against the Astros, they're a low strikeout bunch overall. There's a couple targets in the middle of the lineup who are striking out a little bit. Well, one, Christian Walker, striking out a little bit more than he's usually does, but more targetable than he's been. Cam Smith, we'll see where it goes, but a 27% strikeout rate so far. But literally everybody else in the lineup, excluding Cooper Hummel in this projected over 12 plate appearances, everybody else is good at avoiding the strikeout. They're pretty decent against lefties as well. There's probably going to be a heavily right-handed lineup, kind of like it looks like right there. Still haven't gotten the confirmed in. I think you can play Lopez for sure. He's very, very cheap on DraftKings. 75 on FanDuel is totally manageable for the strikeout upside. But I think it does come with a fair amount of downside, given this ridiculous total, given the ballpark. So it's probably a position where you're on about a 1-for-1 hedge back and forth. Astros are going to be popular against, so maybe it's not exactly a 1-for-1 because then you're just buying into popularity. But I do think there should be some hedge involved if you get to a heavily invested position on Lopez. If it's just a couple lineups, you don't need to go 1-for-1 or anything like that. Colton Gordon on the other side at 67, but 8,000 on FanDuel, kind of differently priced. Also has given up plenty of home runs. He's given up more barrels, hard hits, exit velo are all, this is at the threshold, that's over, that's just under. Large launch angle, way too many home runs allowed so far. Both guys below the mark via Stuff Plus. Gordon not finding the same strikeout success. 23.1 against a 3.1% walk rate, though, is kind of respectable. It's only 30 2/3 in 6 starts. We'll see where it goes. It's just coming on a 9.3% swinging, 28.7% CSW. So it's probably just a little bit illusory right now. I don't think we manage a ongoing 23-ish percent strikeout, probably dips to 20 or below. But he's been somewhat effective. 5 Ks, just 2 earned runs over 6 in his last one. These came on 2 solo home runs against the Twins. 5 innings in each of 3 straight starts before that. 5 strikeouts against the Guardians, 6 against the Rays, 4 against the Mariners. Was mediocre. 1 run allowed against Cleveland, 4 against the Rays, 3 against the Mariners, 3 in his first 2 starts as well. I don't expect much upside, but on DraftKings at 67, if you're just throwing darts at SP2, you can go there. Again, the ballpark's working against them. The run total's working against them. The quality of the opposing lineup with all their power works against them to a degree. You've got some lefties as some of their biggest bats in that lineup, though, so that's at least a little bit of a wrinkle. And again, he has found some strikeouts, so maybe he exploits the A's for some strikeouts and does have a decent game from that perspective. At 8,000 on FanDuel, it's really challenging, especially with the dicey ability to book the quality start. I think we're mostly focused on bats. Given those Vegas totals. Going back to the chat real quick. Where's the game? Game. There we go. Got the 4-seamer back up to 96.2 last time out. Was averaging 96.8 on it in... Oh, no, that's the game by game. Hold on. Let me go back to... I think it was 97. So we're still down about a mile an hour. Again, he's just getting back. Gotta give him a sec. But the velo's already on its way back. Back to the season. It's got a 55.8% whiff rate on the slider right now. 2,309 RPMs of spin. Back in 2023, that was a 55.3% whiff rate on 2,345 RPMs of spin. Doesn't really matter. Pretty negligible. The change is inducing a 42.9% whiff rate. Back in 23, that was 44.4. He's throwing the curve a little bit this year. It's been a 50% whiff rate on that. It's only across 25 curveballs so far. It's also only 27 changeups. Primarily four-seamer slider, which is within expectation. That's the pitcher he is. Yeah, we're just coming back. Currently 92nd percentile whiff rate. It's going to be fine. Gonna be fine. Yeah, but that's the thing, B-ball, especially for DFS. I mean, you're not going to be there early because early would have been last start with him being the most popular pitcher on the slate. Like, you're just going along for the ride now. But, like, this is where you want to be, where, like, you know, getting him too early would have been the first few starts. You want to be there with him when he's back in form and in lockstep. So I think we're there. Anyway, Pena, Paredes, Altuve, Jainer Diaz, Christian Walker. So a pretty decent stretch of hitters. Everybody projects out pretty well with this giant total. You got Pena at 321, 377, 474. I keep on harping on it. It's the best stretch we've ever seen him. But he's been very, very good. 337x WOBA, making decent contact, not killer contact, but up in both categories. Down in strikeouts, up slightly in walks, but doesn't walk all that much still. Just a lot of high-quality bat on ball out of him and a lot of good results. He's also stolen 15 bases. He's hit 9 homers. No reason not to include him. Definitely an appealing bat. As far as like a one-off shortstop on this slate, there are guys that I think are more appealing, especially given the pricing, but he's at worst usable. Paredes with some good power upside, some excellent correlated scoring potential with his on-base skills, 15 home runs on the board to lead this team right now in a home run-friendly environment. I like the upside. Since I got StatCast pulled up, let me check what this ballpark does for Paredes. We haven't looked at it all week. I don't know if they've got a new one for Sutter. Is this actually for this ballpark? So he'd be slightly lower total in this ballpark, but not crazy. He'd have his expected would be 13 in this ballpark versus the 15 he's got. The 16 he would have in Houston. So within line, you know, it's not a big downgrade for Paredes' home run potential, and he's just very good at everything else. 218 ISO, 340 XWOBA, career runs 36% better than average. Altuve's come around. He hit his 12th home run last night. As I've been saying, suddenly it's turning into a pretty decent Jose Altuve season. Needs to keep it up, going up against the lefty. I like the upside again today. Good way to fill second base, in my opinion. I prefer him at second to the outfield, but you can easily pop him into the outfield depending on what you're stacking them with. Jainer Diaz is still cheap at 37.29. He's hit 9 homers, carrying a 90 WRC plus, but a 339 XWOB under the cover should push all of this upward, which would push that upward. He should continue to drive his ISO up as long as he's making consistently good contact, and he makes nothing but contact. So I'm looking forward to this big second half out of Jainer Diaz, especially because I've got him on a bunch of teams. Christian Walker, still barreling baseballs very consistently. Only 10 home runs, just a 152 ISO is just not a match for this kind of quality of contact. It's a dip for him from last year, but not from 2 years ago. The strikeouts are up. The walks are down again this year as they went last year. So it's been problematic, but the price has plummeted along with the performance. So at 39.29, 10.35 in the home run model, I still would definitely prioritize Christian Walker shares if I'm going Astros, with the hope being that maybe other people go different directions given the underperformance so far, which I continue to think would be a mistake. At worst, the 321 XWOB is around the average, so it should be indicative that the slash line should come up somewhat from a 216 average, a 280 on base. The poor slug combined with the atrocious on base, 648 OPS from a hitter that was normally fantastic in that department, is just not who Christian Walker is. Cam Smith getting on base at a very strong clip, 347 on base, very solid slash line over 225 plate appearances. The power waxes and wanes, but a 47.9% hard hit rate, 5 home runs, just a 148 ISO, should probably eventually hit for more power in an ongoing sense. Jake Myers, you're paying a little bit of tax on DK at 4,000 for the good start to his season, but he's been consistently strong. 11 steals on top of a 362 on base, creating runs 21% better than average, getting consistent chances to play, low strikeout, medium walk. He's fine. More appealing on FanDuel, probably at 27. Mauricio Dubon, Cooper Hummel, mix and match quality pieces down the bottom of the lineup. Dubon's having an okay year at 258, 298, 386 with 3 homers and 2 steals, but just a 93 WRC plus, 282 xWOBA. Some of the quality in the average probably comes down and slips, or at best he stays around these numbers. So he's just mix and match. Doesn't really hit the ball particularly hard. On the A's side, let's see if we got this in the last couple minutes. Doesn't look like. Lawrence Butler at 47-34. Solid season out of him for counting stats, 10 homers, 11 steals. Has a 192 ISO that could probably push, given the contact, 10% barrels, 45.5% hard hits. Pretty reminiscent of last year. He's created runs 15% better than average. Strong way to start a stack. Not worried about the lefty-lefty against Colton Gordon, really. Jacob Wilson, one of the best hit tools in baseball. 359, 399, 500 this year so far. Phenomenal start to his season. It's very real as far as the batting average goes. We'll see where his power goes. 8 home runs on the board, but it's more situational power than it is like real raw power. But does not strike out. Doesn't really draw that many walks, so he's just putting good bat on ball. Brent Rooker, monster power, 15 home runs on the board. Would not be surprised to see Rooker go on a big tear for home runs at some point over this the course of the summer, and just see, over a 3-week stretch, he hits 10 home runs and spikes that total pretty quickly. It's maybe a little bit off the pace that we would expect from Rooker, but it's still a 211 ISO, a 398 xWOBA, making tremendous contact. He's cut strikeout dramatically while maintaining walk. He's been really, really good. Luis Urias, 29-27, cheap. For a guy who puts quality bat on ball typically, this year we're down to just 4.4% barrels and 30.8% hard hits, but he still managed to hit 7 home runs. 336 on base to go with that. Just a 154 ISO. So if we get back toward the previous quality of premium contact that we've seen in flashes from him, I think there's upside for those prices. In the heart of the lineup with a 5.40 on the home run model for a cheap price at second base, can definitely get invested. This Max Muncy, 29-26, has hit 5 home runs and 122 chances, carrying a 164 ISO, just a 295 xWOBA under the covers. For some reason, I didn't change him on that board. No, the other one. .9% barrels, but just a 32.9% hard hit rate. Kind of meh. If he comes up in your lineups, fine. Make sure it's the right Max Muncy that you're selecting when you upload your projections. It's a pain in the ass. Kurtz at 34-29. 8 home runs on the board. Has not hit for any kind of quality against left-handed pitching. We'll see if he's in the lineup. The hope, if he is that this team just chases Colton Gordon early and you get into the bullpen and it doesn't really matter. I also just kind of believe in the raw power that the kid has. So against a guy who has been giving up plenty of barrels, plenty of power in general, you can buy some of that, and you can just buy that over more batted ball events. Things will normalize at least a little bit for him. But definitely some very real same-hitted struggles so far. Gio Urshela, Willie McIver, Denzel Clark, not really a big bat among those guys. Gio demonstrably not a big bat overall. He's low strikeout, low walk, so you do get consistent bat on ball. He finds some base hits and gains the reputation of being a clutch hitter from time to time for what is just coming through with the normal base hit from time to time and situational upside. He is not a good bat. If you build a bunch of A stacks, fine. He's very cheap. He's a usable tool, but he's not good. McIver hasn't done anything in 36 plate appearances. Denzel Clark, phenomenal defense. 41% hard hits, 7.7% barrels, and a home run on the board and 4 stolen bases, I guess, if we're just hunting for reasons to play him at a cheap price. He's fine. Astros bats, A's bats. Pick your poison at pitcher. It's mostly DraftKings options at pitcher, I think, though. It's off to a good start, Monty. Monty saying recently in post-game interviews with Steve Sparks, Jeremy Pena has emphasized how important it is to him to reach his preseason goal of 30 stolen bases. There you go. Power says, speaking of home runs, Tara, I was talking to Larry about Joe Adell. He has 8 bombs this month alone. Dude, I've been talking about it since opening day. Had an underrated year last year. Is a member of that little population of Swing Speed Island that I've been talking about all season. Has been crushing baseballs. It's going to come and go. You're going to see big spikes like this one that he's on right now, and then you're going to see dips. He's never going to be a consistent hitter, but the power is very, very real. Shot at a 30 home run season. I say that. What's he at right now? He's at 14. Goddamn. Does have a shot at a 30 home run season. And actually what? Yeah, another one today, right? So 15? Pods against Yoshi Yamamoto. Dodgers against Ryan Bergert. One of these things is not like the other. Bergert checks in over 19 and a third with a 21.3% strikeout, an effective sub-1 whip, 2.33 ERA, but a 4.68 xFIP, a 10.7% walk, just inducing a 6.8% swinging and a 21% CSW, so I have no idea where those strikeouts came from. It's a weird combination of factors when you're here. Like, how the hell did he strike out 21.3% of the hitters he's faced when he's doing that? That makes no sense in the world. Plenty of launch, plenty of barrels. Limited as far as the hard hits, the exit velo, that's kind of saved him in a small sample on that home run number. Stuff Plus doesn't really seem to like the arsenal. I don't really see all that much reason to go here. 2 home runs allowed so far this season. Several of those appearances, it's 3 starts and 4 relief appearances of 1 inning apiece. But in the starts, he's gone 5 twice and 5 1/3 once. I think we're looking typically at 5 innings and probably several runs, and maybe he doesn't even get to 5 innings. I doubt they're planning on having him pitch the 6th. So I really don't think you're going there. 66 on FanDuel, low projected against the best team in baseball. Feels kind of problematic. Same thing on 6,000. I know record-wise, I don't think they're the best team, but are they? I have no idea what anybody's record is. $46 wins, highest in the National League by a win. Tigers still with 48. But I think it's fair to say that the Dodgers, if we're just saying best team in baseball, we're probably not going just by raw win total this year. And if you had the Dodgers playing in that American League Central Division, I feel like they'd have like 60 wins right now. So I think it's safe to say that the Dodgers are really, really good. 5.61 implied total kind of backs that up. Shohei Ohtani's got 25 homers and 11 stolen bases, creating runs 76% better than average, which is, almost as good as Aaron Judge's 100 and change percent better than average if we're quibbling. They're both fantastic. And they both can be. 4,800, 3,600 from Mookie. 9 home runs on the board and 9.65 in the home run model today. Plenty of power upside. We haven't really seen the power stroke come through a ton this year. He's just carrying a 141 ISO, but a 347 xWOB under the covers. We need to find some more consistent bat on ball as far as the barrels, the hard hits. Most particularly the hard hits. That's down about 4 points to 35.6, which becomes a little bit concerning around the edges when we're looking for extra base hits from this player. But he's still been a tremendous asset as far as correlated scoring. He's not far off the marks. He's not striking out. He's drawing plenty of walks. So plenty to still like with Mookie, especially where you get multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. Plenty of upside to come. Freddie Freeman at 53.38, having a tremendous year, 9 home runs. 7.57 is kind of a little surprisingly low in the home run model. 210 ISO, 205 ISO for Will Smith in the spot behind him. He's another player having a tremendous year. Both those guys are very similar so far this year. Look how close all those stats are. 41 ribbies apiece, 38 runs, 36 runs, 332, 333 averages, 402 and a 428 on base, 542 and a 538 slug, a 210 and a 205 ISO. Fantastic pair of performances in the heart of the Dodgers lineup. Part of the reason they're the best team in baseball. Teoscar Hernandez, 5,700, has 13 home runs on the board in 247 plate appearances. Missed a couple of weeks in there, barreling the ball like crazy. Should come roaring back as far as that home run total and the home run pace overall goes. 233 ISO on the board, a 354 xWOB under the covers. He's terrific. Little bit, I won't say cheap because he's 5,037, but he could easily be a couple $100 more. Max Muncy's definitely cheap at 41.31. 9 home runs on the board, went on a little bit of a tear. Still carrying 12.9% barrel, 50.9% hard hit. Strikeouts at 23%, walks at 16.4, doing the 3 true outcomes thing. Max Muncy's always in consideration for Dodgers shares. Andy Pias at 42.33 has 15 home runs. Another guy just having a tremendous year. 287 very, very good plate appearances. This guy would be the buzziest player in baseball in a lot of other lineups as far as just young player breakout years. 137 WRC plus. He's kind of just buried in the quality that Los Angeles has. Another guy who's just way too cheap for the quality he's put up this year, and it's very real. This is how he's expected to hit. Last season in 443 chances, he hit 13 home runs. This is where we're coming from. That's why I'm saying I can't believe he's not getting more buzz for the breakout. It's not like he's anonymous down there, but should be talked about more. 3,277 from Conforto. The slash line is ugly. 168, 305, 277. The home run total is ugly. The 109 ISO is atrocious. I don't really understand it against the 9.2% barrel and 44.4% hard hits. And just everything that he hits is directly at somebody. I don't know if I buy that. What's his BABIP? He's crushing baseballs. 217 batting average on balls in play. There's your problem. Everything he hits is well struck. It's just right at somebody. A lot of misfortune so far. Still drawing a 13.6% walk rate. If he had any luck on the BABIP, that would actually be a decent on base. He'd be closer to league average for run creation. You can see a very strong 339 xWOBA saying that he should be better in the long term. At 3,200, he's super playable. Easy way to cheapen up this Dodgers lineup if he's down there against a medium quality at best righty. And that's giving Brian Burgert a lot of credit. Tommy Edman at 38, 3,000, mix and match quality player with infield eligibility on both sites. Outfield eligibility to boot on FanDuel. Has 10 home runs. It was a nice story for a while there, but he's normalized to being just Tommy Edman, which is a perfectly playable player, but not the ridiculous asset that he looked like early in the season. Yamamoto, as mentioned, a couple bumpy ones. 5 earned runs in 4 2/3 his last time out. That was against San Francisco. Struck out 4 and walked 5. Gave up 2 home runs. One of his worst starts of the season. 3 2/3 against the Yanks. 2 starts before that. 4 earned runs on 7 hits. Gave up a homer. 2 strikeouts. 3 walks. In between, faced St. Louis. 6 innings, 4 hitter. No runs. 9 strikeouts. 2 walks. No problems. Was tremendous for most of the season prior to that. Did have a 5-run game against the Diamondbacks back on May 8th. That's the only other blip. He struck out 10 twice. He struck out 9 3 times already this season. He's pitching to a 28.6% strikeout rate, 2.64 ERA with a 3.01 xFIP, 11.8% swinging strike rate. He is walking 9.5% if we're looking for things to nitpick, but he's keeping launch angle extremely low, so he's difficult to homer against. It's difficult to capitalize on those free chances. Just a 1.09 whip against that kind of a walk rate is definitely effective. Very, very strong numbers for Yamamoto. Fairly the second highest priced player, the second highest priced pitcher, and second highest projected pitcher on the slate. Easy go-to alternative from Spencer Strider for those of you in the crowd looking to get away from Spencer Strider. This is your strongest next candidate. Ignore that 26.1% average. Focus more on that number. This is skewed, obviously, by an 80% from Trenton Brooks in 5 plate appearances. That counts not at all. Your much more realistic number is 19.3. We can take out the 25%. It's 18.5 and so on and so forth. This is a very low strikeout opponent. So maybe it's a 5-6 strikeout day for Yamamoto rather than a 9-10 strikeout day. But against this board, I think he's still very much in play, has a good opportunity to keep them in check for runs for a few innings. Plenty of playability. 3.52 implied total kind of speaks for itself. Top-heavy pods lineup, but if you're looking to attack Yamamoto, look for some of the downside from the walks, look for this low strikeout team to maybe put some effective bat on ball. There's at least a story to be told about how they can succeed here, and they're not that expensive. Fernando Tatis, for one thing, is below 5,000. 3,900 on FanDuel is a very different price than 49 on DraftKings. 13 homers, 15 steals, just a 190 ISO, but it's not because of poor contact, just some poor results in there. The contact's down a little bit from his previously tremendous numbers, but in a vacuum, those are great numbers on their own. Strikeouts are down, walks are up. He's stolen 15 bags, 379 xWOBA, creating runs a team second on the team, 133 WRC plus. Luis Arraez is more of a problem. At 36, he's just a weird fit at first base with the way he's hitting 283, 315, 397 from a guy that we just need to succeed for BABIP and correlated scoring. Even with his price as low as it is, it's just not a good fit from a position where we need to find some power. So I don't love how that works out. 114 ISO, just a 102 WRC plus, just not hitting quite like himself. There's a lot of bat on ball available, but you're just talking about little dink and dunk singles into the outfield or just outs. Manny Machado at 51-35, 11 home runs, a team leading 147 WRC plus. It's just been ridiculous this year. 12.2% barrels, 51.5% hard hits, not striking out, drawing plenty of walks. This is one of the better versions of Manny Machado we've seen in several years. He's not fully priced. He should be like 55 or higher on DraftKings. He should probably be at like the 39 to 4,000 level on FanDuel. Gavin Sheets is also not priced up. He shouldn't be priced to those levels, but he should definitely be more expensive than 3,000 on FanDuel. That's a higher FanDuel price than it is a DraftKings price. 10.6% barrels, 54.2% hard hits, a dozen home runs, a 207 ISO, 126 WRC plus, 351 xWOBA. Dude's just been good. Forget the Gavin Sheets that we used to know. This Gavin Sheets is very real right now. Jake Cronenworth, 35-29, mix and match at worst, gets on base at a 360 clip right now. Effective enough run creator, 120 WRC plus. We've seen stretches of quality from him before. Could go on a little bit of a tear to push the batting average up. Also could go the other way and go in the tank a little bit and pull the on base down. That's who Jake Cronenworth is. Take the good with the bad, but he's not expensive. Second base eligible on both sides. Bogey at 31 has been kind of a problem at shortstop at this point. 227, 303, 314. Not getting the bounce back that I was expecting from Bogey. What I point to is the low strikeout rate, the high walk rate. Those are good attributes when we're just looking at cheap players, but we're not getting the quality of bat on ball that I was expecting. The hard hit is up, but the barrel's still hovering at just 4.8%. It just hasn't been good. 76 WRC plus. It's getting further and further from desirable option. Very cheap Trenton Brooks, who does have power as a quad A type player. He's got a home run in 5 plate appearances. Martin Maldonado, probably just as much upside for an odd duck home run down toward the bottom of the lineup. He's done that a few times already this season, 3 in 104 chances. He's in no way a good hitter, but just a mix in DFS option, sure. And then Bryce Johnson at the dead min on both sides. We had a little Johnson. Oh, I heard it. We had a small sample of Bryce Johnson over the last couple of years. 206, 286, 238, and 73 chances. No homers, 1 steal last year. 48 plate appearances, 1 homer, 3 steals, 163, 229, 256 a year before that. Just 19 homers. We won't give him any credit for, or 19 plate appearances back 3 years ago. We won't talk about those. Mix in at the absolute best, weak point more likely down toward the bottom of the lineup. Not a lot of love for the pods. If you're going there, you're just kind of landing on the same guys everybody else is anyway. Outside of maybe some cheap mixers, if you're getting aggressive about your Padres stacking just for being the sake of being contrarian, but you're facing a really good pitcher who doesn't give up much power or home runs. So you kind of take that out of the mix. Becomes more problematic for this team to score runs and capitalize on some of the on base. There's a lot of just contact oriented options in here. A lot of inconsistency. Doesn't look like a great spot for pods. Dodgers bats, Yamamoto or Yamamoto. Dodgers bats, honestly. 6 of one, half dozen of another. You should have a lot of both. Padres bats over Ryan Bergert, I would say. I don't see much reason to consider Bergert. And that'll do it, gang. We're at the end of the show, end of the slate. 5:32. We've got a, 6:45 start on both sides, right? 6:40, excuse me. I don't want to cost anybody 5 minutes. 6:40 start time. No weather concerns. No issues with this slate. Just an hour and a half in. Larry likes Houston and the Athletics. I have no issues with either of those stacks. I think the Dodgers were just the raw, like, top of the board, if I remember correctly, in the stacks tool. Seems kind of straightforward and obvious, to say Dodgers. They were number one by home run, number one by Vegas total, number one by a DK projection, and number one by FanDuel projection, though. Astros and Athletics were 2 and 3. Athletics are number one by overall point per dollar value on both sites as well. Number 3 by home runs. The one that I would sprinkle into the mix, the 2, actually. I think the Phils are kind of underappreciated here. There's just a lot of upside at any given slate in that Phillies lineup, and I like the power upside for Schwarber as the home run pick of the day going up against Edward Cabrera, who can be very good. They rank 6th by Vegas total, 2nd on the DK value board with some cheap bats there. They're 9th by point per dollar value on FanDuel, differently priced across sites. They rank out 4th by home runs and points on both sites. So, like, it depends on which lens I'm looking at favorite through. Right? The Dodgers, the Astros, the Athletics are all going to be more popular than the Phillies. It's one of the reasons I went with Schwarber as the home run pick. Just a little bit further off the board. So through that lens, it's probably the Phils. Through the very chalky but very clearly good opportunities, I'm very much with you on the either side of the Astros and Athletics. I think I said Astros over the Athletics, and that's how the board bears it out. But it's very close between those two teams. So yeah, it very much depends on what we're saying as far as favorite in that favorite stack question. John Hans asks Mets. Look, as I said during that game, as the Vegas total shows, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Mets go out there and put 4 or 5 runs on Spencer Strider today. He's in no way a guarantee. They're fully priced against one of the very best, if he's on, pitchers in baseball. But you could have gotten to the old version of Spencer Strider, right? This Mets lineup against the old version of Spencer Strider, I wouldn't have been stunned by 4 or 5 runs. I think there's limited opportunity to put like 10, 12 runs on Spencer Strider. I think that takes you down a peg as the stack of the day because you're dealing more with like typical median as your probable like ceiling. Right? With a 4 and change projection, it feels like a day where that honestly means like 3.5 to 5 runs rather than, it's 4 and change, but it could get out to like 7, 8, 9. It could, obviously. But I think against Strider, we diminished that a little bit just for the ability to miss bats, which very much still there. Last looks at the pitching board. Then let me get out of here, get the site updated, build some lineups. So Strider, top of the board. Again, just most highly owned pitcher on both sites. Ridiculously affordable at 8,600 on FanDuel. That's just an opportunity. I get dancing around his ownership on DraftKings more just because there's not as much just inherent opportunity in the price at 10.6 and the most expensive price on the slate. If that was working the other way and rendering him lower owned than he ought to be, and if you're seeing it that way somewhere else, then dive in. But at that price, I could see pivoting to some Yamamoto, getting to some Chris Sanchez, definitely at 9,000. The opportunity of the day to me, though, is this one. Good as the Braves are, good as they are for power, Clay Holmes is very talented. Maybe not the biggest strikeout guy on the mound, but 75 and projected at 10% ownership via the site that we look at is kind of wild on this pitching slate to me. 78 for Drew Rasmussen's a good opportunity. These guys are in the mix because they're just dirt cheap in the bargain bin. Any one of the $6,000 guys not named Ryan Bergert against the Dodgers, I think is fine to throw a few darts at worst. What you should probably do if you're building a handful of lineups or a full portfolio is have a pretty strong spread across those guys because there's a decent probability that one of those guys comes through with a serviceable enough start in the 6s. Cabrera at 7,000 and at 78 on FanDuel. And by the way, that's less so on FanDuel. FanDuel, you're just kind of mixing through these guys and you have less need to go to those guys. You can get a cheap pitcher and try and pick something off, in which case maybe I would chase Jacob Lopez, good as the Astros look today, just for the strikeout upside. Cabrera, I just kind of lean Phils. I really do. I think that's where I'm going to be maybe, hopefully a little bit different, is on some Phil's bats and take my chances against Cabrera, who again is a good pitcher. Doug, we'll see. I assume, life on the line that he's going to be out there. I would expect, I knocked it down by a couple minutes. I think he's been knocked further down in other places. If he takes the court, I expect full go. Maybe diminished by the injury overall, but I would expect full go as far as the minutes go. And then, if underperformance happens, it happens. If he's taking the court, my hope would be that you're getting, looks like Jesus Sanchez made the lineup for the Marlins. If he takes the court, my hope is that he takes it at lower ownership than he ought to be, and you get a little bit of advantage there. He won't be low owned by any means. No news yet. If he doesn't go, I assume, we fire away with, TJ McConnell and so forth. Probably creates more opportunity and a more interesting slate if he doesn't play. If he does go, it's just kind of the same. It's projected out almost exactly the same the last couple of days. But we did, speaking of that, though, using the projections, our guy Illegal Form Nation just on Tuesday? The 16th, whenever that was. Took down 10 grand in the FanDuel $4 solo first place on a showdown slate for 10K. Not bad. Yeah, Doug, that's how I feel. Same odds to play well as he has had. Yeah. And he's projected almost exactly the same. And the only difference is that I knocked it down by 2 minutes. If I just left it at I think it was 36 down to 34, or maybe it was 38 down to 36. I forget what I did. But it would have been the exact same projection. I don't think I changed the rate any. If I did, it was by a decimal point. BBL Slayer, you don't want my answer. You know who I'm going to say. Feel like you're setting me up. BBL Slayer asks, going to put all my rent money on FanDuel single entry. What pitcher is the best for that situation? It's most definitely Christopher Sanchez. Just because I know you don't want to hear Spencer Strider. It's definitely Spencer Strider. He has an incomparable ceiling for 8,600 on that slate. A lot of people are going to be going there, so you can get around it via that. And you obviously, I know you have your concerns about the Strider spot. So if that were an actual question and you actually were making that bet, I'd say feel free to dive in on some Sanchez. That's a tremendous spot at 97. It's more expensive than Strider. Against the Marlins, though, there's tons of upside for him, and he's very, very good. A little bit cheaper than Yamamoto against a better Padres team. So that would be my answer there. Or beyond that, Clay Holmes at 89, Drew Rasmussen at 83. You got options to work with depending on what you're looking for. So if you want to work your way down toward that Strider's price, like what could you replace Strider with and get to the same bats? It's Clay Holmes, Drew Rasmussen in that conversation. But yeah, if you want me to take Strider off the board, I think my answer to that would have probably been Chris Sanchez. My true answer is Strider, even with popularity. You get different with bats. Easy enough to win. Yeah, Jalen's looking good. I think that lineup that Brendan won with the other day was SGA, Jalen, McConnell. I'm going to say Dort and Hartenstein. I think that was it. But a solid takedown. Again, 10 grand on the $4. Not bad. I could use that tonight. Wouldn't mind it. I'll take a little bit of success on the baseball slate. Looks like my early slate went okay. One of those, some good lineups, some chasers that didn't quite get there, but a couple bucks profit on a handful of entries. I think we're at that level. We'll see what the night slate looks like. Let me get out of here. Get that updated for you. Big chops likes the Houston pitcher. Yeah, we talked him through. I prefer the bats on both sides of that one. He's been all right, but as I highlighted, my question with him, 23-1 versus 3.1% walk rate. Not bad at all. 9.3% swinging, 28.7% CSW. We've got a few too many guys on base. Some of that is via BABIP, though. 4.70 ERA against the 3.30. XFIP has been good. There's a lot of premium contact on a fly ball trajectory, though. Depends on what we see somewhat with the A's as far as those lefties. Could be advantageous for them if some of them are in the lineup. But again, I do kind of worry about that a little bit less. I want to see more from Kurtz before saying he's not going to be good against lefties. And this guy's giving up way too much power and premium contact just for this ballpark. But yeah, if you're just looking at the strikeout to walk, if you're looking at the XFIP, there are reasons to think that he's on the board and at least consider him. And he's very much so at 67 on the DraftKings board, as I was getting at. At 8,000 on FanDuel, I'm less intrigued. We got him out to 6 innings in his last start. The 3 prior to that were just 5 innings apiece. In a high danger environment, I think if they get 5 decent innings, I don't know that we see him for the 6th. So that's where I run into a little bit of trouble on FanDuel. But he again, 26.9 projection for 8,000 is perfectly fine. Like, I think the board indicates that he's playable. It's just, I think you can just live kind of in this range on FanDuel and be perfectly fine without having to dip into bad situations. Different ballpark. If they were playing this one in the Coliseum, that would probably be a much more intriguing spot for both of these pitchers, honestly. But they're not. There's your problem. Anyway, guys, let me punch out of here. Good luck out there tonight. The website will be updated in the next couple of minutes. So good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Share the results when you do. At rotoscouts on Twitter or in the Discord, which is linked for free down there. On your way down, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube if you haven't already. Pull up rotoscouts.com if you want to subscribe to the website, gain access to all the projections, the home run model numbers, top stacks, anything else that hits that website, NBA projections for probably the last game of the season tonight. NHL projections are done. Congratulations to Florida. NFL right around the corner, though. Under $1 a day accesses anything that hits that website. With that in mind, you guys, we will see you tomorrow for more of this. Later.